4D Crab with Opening Claws Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi everyone! In today's video I'm going to be showing you this really cute little 4D crab, and the reason he is 4D is because both of his claws can open up. So there's a little hinge under there so that I'm going to call it the thumb portion of the claw, can move back and forth like this. So he can have his claws open or he can have his claws shut. You can even, if you'd like, you can kind of figure it out so he can be holding something. You can really play around with this. I think it's adorable. If you didn't want to make both the claws opening, one of them would also work. You could just make one opening and one of them could just be flat. I hope you guys like this design, and I will be uploading a not one that super goes with it, but kind of a complementary design tomorrow. So if you like this shellfish sort of idea, check back for that. So I hope you guys like this video, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
So to start with, I wanted it to have a very aquatic blue marbly background. So I have light blue, dark blue, and teal glitter that I'm just very simply marbling. Most of this is going to get covered up anyway by the crab, and you don't even really see it. So if you wanted to just do a blue background, that would be perfectly fine and not worry about marbling it. Or if you don't really like your marble, don't worry about it because, like I said, most of it's not even going to be seen, but I kind of liked the marble, so I went with it. After you have that on there, then you're going to want to encase the nail with a layer of clear acrylic just to make sure that it is nice and strong, and especially with that teal glitter in there. If you do file a glitter like that, it's going to turn kind of a, I don't know, scratchy looking gray instead of that nice pretty glitter. So just make sure that you have the clear on there to protect it. Then file the nail into shape. I'm using a very coarse bit to start with just to make sure that there's no, I don't know, huge bulky areas that need to be thinned down, and then switching to a much finer bit to remove any scratches that first bit may have left behind. And then because red acrylic is going to stain your blue background, make sure you apply a layer of gel sealer before you start working on your little crab. After that is cured, then with red acrylic, like I just mentioned, we're going to be sculpting our crab. So I'm going to start with his body. So just with kind of a football shape, place that down and make it pretty wide. You want it to be a pretty big crab on here. You know, fill the nail. And then add the two little bits for the little stems of his eyes, I guess is the way I'm going to word this. So add those, and then don't really worry about it if they're too long or anything. You're going to attach googly eyes later, so just make sure that you do have those in place. I also took a little bit more red acrylic on his face and kind of carved away where his mouth is going to be. Make sure that you have that nice big goofy smile. This crab, he's very cutesy. He's got googly eyes and a giant toothy smile and claws that open up. If you wanted it to be more realistic, tomorrow's video is going to be, like I said, in that shellfish category, but it's going to be a lot more realistic, kind of a different style. So I said they don't totally go together. Then you're also going to need to add all of his legs. So to start with, I added the two legs that are going up that are going to have his claws, but don't sculpt the claws. Just sculpt the sections of arm prior to the claw. And then for his other legs, it's really hard to see what you're doing really because there's not that much space as far as on the nail. Like I said, make his body as big as you can. You want it to fill the nail. But you've got the two legs that are going down that you can see the whole leg of. And then you can just see the little point of the other legs. So after you have those two in place, just kind of down right on the underside of his body, add the last section of the rest of his legs. So just with red. And when you are sculpting on top of the gel sealer, which is another reason why this is beneficial with this design specifically, is that these little bits of a thin, skinny 3D elements are so much easier to sculpt on top of on a slippery surface than they would be on top of just that filed acrylic. So it's a lot easier to sculpt it this way, and you're not going to get your blue stained, which would definitely happen, especially with my red. Maybe yours isn't that way, but mine I know would make a huge mess of it and everything would end up looking kind of purple. Then with a very narrow bit, create a little hole above the ends of where the arms are that will have the claws. And then into that hole, you're going to want to glue a very fine piece of wire. So put down a little bit of nail glue and then stick your wire into the hole and kind of hold it up so that it sticks straight up. Depending on how big your hole is, you may need to put some acrylic in there if there's a lot of extra space. If you have a small enough bit where your wire pretty much fits in nicely, you shouldn't have to worry about that. The nail glue will be sufficient. So then on a nail form backing, grab a little red glass bead. There's my little beads. And you're going to place a bead of red acrylic next to the glass bead. And then sculpt this is the smaller section of the claw. So don't make these too big. Be very careful that they don't get too big. But just sculpt your little, I'm going to go back to my original wording, the little thumb, the little part that moves. So this part is the part that's going to be moving. The other portion of the claw is stationary. So that part does not move at all. This is the only part of it that moves. Make sure it's thick enough that it's not going to be really weak, so you may need to add a second coat or a second layer of acrylic to it, and make sure, be very careful not to fill the hole that's in your glass bead. And then right next to that smaller section of claw, you're going to need to sculpt the larger section. So it's the same basic idea. It's kind of like a teardrop that's just ever so curved in shape. But the one side is going to go in and the one side is going to go. So they're both pointing in, but because they go together, they're pointing in opposite directions. So as you're sculpting them, make sure that you do have two pieces that two large claw sections and two small claw sections that are opposite each other. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to sculpt them next to each other. I just think that kind of helps me visualize it. So then on the nail, take your small claw sections and put the bead over your piece of wire so that they're on the proper side. And then you're going to need to trim off the extra wire. So I just, either with, I don't know, fingernail clippers or a little wire nippers. I usually, for this really fine wire, will just use a fingernail clippers because I think it's plenty easy enough. The wire itself cuts really easy. And I have a fingernail clippers that's dedicated to cutting things that I want that isn't a nail. So my nail clippers, that's for cutting other stuff. And then glue that other claw to the wire. But don't glue it to the other piece of claw. So glue your large claw section to the wire without gluing it to the small claw section. Ooh, that's kind of weird to say. Do that for both sides, but don't bend the wire over yet. Keep that straight. So just glue those on so the claw is open in a way that it normally wouldn't. And then cover your wire with some acrylic, either red or clear. Just don't really hold that wire on. So then you're going to need to bend your claw over. Just like that. As you can see, that fine wire just bends so easy. So you can just bend that claw piece over, and then you can, as you can see, your little claws move about. So then with kind of a peachy color of acrylic, you're going to want to place a bead down right where the eyeball goes, and then set down your googly eyes. I found these googly eyes. I was cleaning out some stuff in my, I don't know, one of my craft bins that I've had. And these are probably from when I was in like 4th grade. I was like, hey, look at these cute little googly eyes. And I was like, I need to put these in a design somewhere, somehow. They need to be included. And this is where they found a home. But anyways, add your 2 little googly eyes. I don't know, they just make this design so much. They just add so much, I think. And then take that same peachy color and you're going to add a little highlight over a lot of your crab. Pretty much everywhere. Adding this red and then orange layer is going to add so much color dimension and so much, I don't know, so much variation that makes it look so much better, because a lot of things, if it was just flat red, it has a lot less visual interest, but if it's got these different layers on it, it just looks so much, it just has so much more to it. So make sure that you do add that. If you have an acrylic that's too opaque and doesn't have this translucent kind of floaty, foggy appearance that mine does, just make sure you have a lot of monomer in it and it will dilute the pigment so that it does do this effect. Then with acrylic paint, I'm going to start with black, and I'm going to be painting the whole area where his teeth are going to be. I know he's got white teeth, but I'm going to just paint the whole thing black just to start with because it's easier. And then add your details to everything else. So add little outlines on everything. Like I said, this guy, he's cartoony, so don't be afraid to do outlines. I know sometimes people are like, oh, you don't want to over outline things because it ruins the realism. Well, he's a cartoon. He doesn't need realism. So make sure that you add your outlines everywhere that you really want things to be defined, which for me, on this crab, since it's all the same color, you really want a lot. So just keep outlining everything. Outline every section of his legs. Don't worry about too much on the outlining for his claws, the upper claws that are opening, because when they open and shut, it kind of messes with that. But then fill in his teeth with the white, and then going back to black paint, you're going to want to define his teeth. So just start out with a bar shape for the white, and then we'll split that in half with black, and then add the individual teeth. Then apply some matte top coat over your little crab. I wanted to apply gel sealer over his eyes, so make sure his eyes are still shiny, and then cure that, and you are all done. I think he's adorable. It's just one of these goofy designs that is fun to make. I don't know who wouldn't think this was just kind of fun and a quick little afternoon project to make you smile. Anything with googly eyes is all good in my book. So I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and please share any recreations with me on Facebook and Instagram. I would love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!